Hey everyone, Vince here, and today I've got some gameplay footage for you from Torn Banner Studios' upcoming first-person multiplayer combat game, Chivalry Deadliest Warrior. This is actually an expansion to last year's Chivalry Medieval Warfare, to which we gave it a 7.9, and it looks to build on the foundation of night-on-night combat that the original started. But as you've probably figured out by now, the guys we're fighting this time aren't just knights. Instead, this expansion draws from the famous warrior archetypes from the Deadliest Warrior TV show and throws them into the mix so you could, for instance, see whether a samurai could take on a Spartan. Rounding out the roster is the dual-wielding Viking and the newly revealed ninja and pirate classes, which weren't quite ready to be played just yet when Torn Banner came through. If this premise sounds familiar, it's because it's been done before as a fighting game. Now, this isn't a fighting game by any means, but the game's lead designer is actually a longtime SoulCalibur player, and that same sense of spacing and timing is really evident here. Attacks are slow and weighty, but also incredibly lethal. It feels a lot like playing Bushido Blade from first or third person, and there's a nice interplay between attacking, defending, and mobility that really appealed to the fighting fan in me. It's hard to tell from watching initially, but there's actually a ton of nuance to these duels. Moving the mouse is sort of akin to rotating at the hip, and understanding that is really essential to getting adept at the combat. For example, every weapon's swing becomes most lethal at different angles and ranges, and shifting your orientation can greatly affect that. You can see here I'm learning how to swing a halberd properly, and the devs have turned on these tracer lines that show where my swing is most lethal. When I swing normally, the red zone is kinda narrow and to my left, but then when I shift the mouse right and then left as I swing, the red area is almost centered in front of me and it gets a lot wider. This feature will actually be accessible in the game's training mode, so players can practice how to shift their hips with different swings to get the most out of them. All of that affects blocking and dodging too, so there's actually a surprising amount of skill involved. It should be interesting to see how all this plays out when you're fighting big 32 on 32 battles. The combat is a bit slow and very technical, but if the final product does a good job of teaching players about all of these nuances, it could make for some really tense multiplayer action when it hits later this fall. For more on Chivalry Deadliest Warrior, be sure to stay locked in here at IGN.